Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're doing something a bit different, really zeroing in on one single account.
Yeah, just one source, but it's
Yeah,
intense.
intense is definitely the word. We're looking at a near-death experience, but probably not like any you've heard before. Forget the white light, the peace, all that
Yeah.
stuff.
hmm
This is about sheer terror, absolute certainty of death, and this lingering question the survivor has had for 20 years. Did I actually die back in 2004?
And that's the core mystery we want to explore for you today. It's the account of Melissa B. after a really bad car crash on Sunset Boulevard. And importantly, in the NDE research, this one gets flagged as entirely distressing.
Right. Not the usual euphoric experience.
Not at all. It's defined by, like you said, that certainty of doom and the psychological aftermath of surviving something that just felt, well, mathematically impossible.
Okay, let's paint the picture. It's October 2004, about 8:30 p.m. Saturday night, LA. She's driving home from work on Sunset near UCLA.
And if you know that stretch of road.
Exactly. It's busy, it's curvy, and critically, no shoulder. Just nowhere to bail out.
Right.
And our source material, her account, it just lays out this sudden shift from a normal drive home to absolute crisis. The whole premise is just deeply unsettling. She
Yeah.
walks away, but believes she might be living in some kind of alternate reality, maybe one created by her own death.
And that belief, that really intense belief, it only clicks when you understand how inescapable the crash seemed.
Yes.
We're not talking about a minor accident here.
No.
This was, from her perspective, geometrically impossible to survive.
Okay, so let's break down that moment, the crisis point. Melissa's driving along, and maybe 50 feet ahead, a car spins out, ends up completely sideways, blocking both her lanes.
Instant wall right in front of her.
Exactly, total blockage. Impact seems unavoidable. But then there's the second thing happening. She glances right, and there's another car driving right alongside her, parallel. In that split second, she realizes, I had nowhere to go. Literally boxed in.
That geometry is just terrifying. Hit the car ahead, it's catastrophic. Swerve right, you hit the car beside you. Probably get pinned between them. There's no out.
But instinct, that fight or flight, it kicks in hard. She describes yanking the wheel hard right, just trying to clear the car in front.
A split-second decision.
Yeah, and then immediately whipping the wheel back left, which sends her own car spinning totally out of control, swerving across all the lanes of Sunset.
Just chaos. Metal
Yeah.
screeching, car spinning.
Right, and while all that physical chaos is happening, the source says this profound internal shift takes place.
This is where it gets really NDE-like.
Yes. She reaches this point of absolute certainty she's going to die. She says, and this is a direct quote, "Every part of me, body, mind, and soul knew I was going to die. I had never been so certain of anything."
Wow. That level of certainty.
It's absolute. And the signal for her, the thing that confirmed this is it, wasn't like a typical life review flashing before her eyes.
No reels of old memories.
Not exactly. She describes seeing a memory, but a brand new one, of being 3 years old with her mother at Disney World.
Okay, wait. A new memory.
That's what she says.
Yeah.
Explicitly, a memory she had never had before, never consciously accessed it.
That's really strange. So not retrieving forgotten moments, but maybe generating something or accessing something incredibly deep.
It makes you wonder, doesn't it? Is the brain in that final moment creating a comforting image, like pulling the most primal, safe feeling it can find, even if it has to construct it?
That's one way to look at it. Like the life flash isn't just playback. It's maybe a mechanism for closure.
Yeah.
Supplying something needed right then, even if it's new data, so to speak, like a signpost saying, okay, this is the end.
But here's the twist, and this is maybe the most critical part of her whole story. She sees the signpost, feels the certainty, and rejects it.
She doesn't accept it.
No. She just starts screaming, doesn't know if it was out loud or just in her head, just yelling, no, this isn't fair, I'm not done yet. That refusal, that raw defiance, that becomes the absolute cornerstone of how she interprets everything that happened next and everything since.
That conscious choice to just not comply. That's
Well-
really something. It's the foundation for her entire worldview shift later on, isn't it?
Yeah.
She wasn't passively accepting fate.
Not at all.
She was actively fighting what felt like the inevitable end, which is, quite different from many NDE accounts where people report a sense of peace or surrender.
Right. Melissa's last conscious act before the impossible happened was just pure, stubborn will. What a Samir.
Okay, so let's talk about what that moment felt like subjectively, because amidst the spinning metal and the terror, her reported state of consciousness is fascinating.
Yeah, the NDE questionnaire data is interesting here. She rated her consciousness during the event as more consciousness and alertness than normal.
So not fading out, but actually hyper-aware,
Yeah,
dialed up.
exactly. Hyper aware of every little thing. And then there's the time distortion. This is classic NDE territory, but again, with her own specific flavor.
She notes time seemed off, faster or slower than usual. But then she gets really specific. She says, every millisecond felt like an hour.
Wow. Okay. So extreme time dilation.
Extreme. And her thoughts were racing incredibly fast. Like her mind was trying to process the impossible physics of the situation in real time, maybe even faster than real time.
And her senses, too.
Heightened, incredibly more vivid than usual. It's like her whole being was accelerated, trying to somehow compute or react to this unavoidable impact.
So she's fighting, screaming, no, internally or externally. Her mind's racing, time is stretching, and then it just stops.
Abruptly, she finds herself completely still. Her car is now perpendicular, but in the opposing lanes of traffic.
Okay, that's weird in itself. But this next part, this is the moment that seems to have just fractured her sense of reality.
Right. The critical observation.
She looks around, expecting sirens, chaos, other cars, and she says, there was not a single car anywhere.
Yeah, that's the part that's hard to reconcile.
Sunset Boulevard, Saturday night, 8:30 p.m. It should be busy, right?
Absolutely. Near UCLA, it should be packed.
Yeah.
But she describes it as completely empty, like everything had been wiped clean.
And this wasn't just a brief lull. She says she drove the last 5 minutes home to her apartment, parked her car, and saw nothing. No cars, no people, no signs of life anywhere. Just empty.
Now, the skeptical take is, okay, maybe she was in shock. Adrenaline. Could she have just missed the traffic? Maybe pulled over briefly and things cleared.
That's the logical question, sure, but her account is adamant. This wasn't gradual, it was instantaneous and total. The sudden, absolute vacuum of noise and activity right after the peak of the crisis.
That contrast is key for her.
Exactly. The silence was so jarring compared to the preceding chaos. If the laws of physics dictated a massive pileup just milliseconds before.
Then the sudden, utter emptiness felt like proof that those laws no longer applied, that she wasn't in Kansas anymore, so to speak.
Which led her straight to this terrifying conclusion when she got home. She thought she had died.
And because she yelled, no!
Right, because she refused. She wasn't allowed to move on properly. She was now stuck in some limbo. Just imagine that feeling alone in a silent universe.
The existential dread must have been overwhelming. So much so that she couldn't trust her own reality anymore.
And this next detail is just heartbreaking, really. It shows the depth of the psychological impact.
The phone call.
Yeah, she had to call her best friend, not even to talk about the crash initially. She had to call her friend to ask basic questions to verify her own existence.
Asking her own name.
Asking her friend, what's my name? How old am I? What city is this? What's the date?
Oh, wow. Just needing that external anchor because her internal reality felt completely broken.
Exactly. Can you imagine having to make that call? Am I real? Is this year real? It just highlights how profoundly the impossible escape and the subsequent void shook her core belief in, well, in everything. The question wasn't just what happened, but where and when did she land after it happened?
And that sense of dislocation, that questioning, it didn't just fade away after a few days. This is the long-term fallout that really defines this account as unique.
Yeah, she says the experience has haunted me my whole life. Still, 20 years later, grappling with that fear that maybe her life since 2004 has been, in her words, a very detailed death trip.
Because that impossible survival, the empty street, it remains unexplained by just, normal physics or standard explanations.
Which forces you to look at the deeper impact, right? The psychological, the spiritual changes. Even if she physically survived, her reality framework was just shattered.
Totally. And it led to this massive overhaul in her beliefs and values.
What was her background before this?
She was raised Christian Catholic, but she does mention she'd always kind of believed in reincarnation, which is interesting.
Okay. And after 2004?
Big shift. She says she's now more Buddhist than any other religion.
Buddhism. Interesting. Why do you think that direction, after terror, you might expect someone to cling tighter to childhood faith, maybe?
That's a good point.
Huh?
But I wonder if the experience was defined by internal chaos, by her mind racing uncontrollably, by reality itself seeming to fracture.
Then maybe Buddhism, with its focus on mindfulness, meditation, finding stillness.
Exactly. It feels like a direct response, an attempt to regain some kind of control over her own consciousness. The only thing she felt she could control, after realizing, as she put it, nothing worked the way I thought it did. Meditation became a daily, necessary practice for her.
Trying to find stability after the foundation cracked.
Yeah, and it changed her priorities, too. She said her number one focus became just being a kind person. That whole perception shift came from facing that raw, existential edge.
And it all circles back to that moment of refusal, doesn't it?
It really does. For her, the most meaningful part, the takeaway, was the power in saying no, realizing the strength of her own will to live.
And this is crucial, the idea that sometimes we have a choice about dying.
The idea that her conscious will somehow overrode the physical inevitability of the crash.
Which is a huge leap, conceptually. And it's the bridge, really, to how she ultimately makes sense of it all. It's the so what of the story for her.
Right. If defiance trumped physics, how do you explain that? Where did the energy, the mechanism for that override come from?
And she lands on, something from theoretical physics.
Quantum physics, specifically. Now, we should be clear. This is her interpretation, her belief system, built after the fact to explain the inexplicable. It's a leap from observation to high-level theory.
Of course. It's her making sense of her experience.
Exactly. But for her, it's the only thing that fits. She now genuinely believes she did die in her original timeline, back in 2004.
Wow.
And that the sheer force of her will, that scream of no, somehow caused her consciousness to jump to a parallel existence.
So the empty street wasn't just shock or a weird lull in traffic in her original world.
In her interpretation, no. It was the signature of arriving in a different timeline. A timeline where maybe the crash happened differently or wasn't as catastrophic, or where the immediate aftermath was just clean, wiped.
The Melissa B driving that car ceased to exist in one reality.
And this version of her, the one telling the story, somehow took her place or continued in this adjacent reality.
That's quite a conclusion to live with.
It is, but it provides a framework. If normal physics couldn't explain it, maybe the rules of reality itself bent or fractured under the pressure of her will. The quantum jump idea explains the impossible survival in the empty street, and it validates the power she felt in that moment of refusal. It explains why maybe she still feels a little detached from this world she woke up in.
So looking at Melissa B's account overall, it really stands out, doesn't it? It hits some NDE markers like time distortion and heightened consciousness, but completely lacks all the comforting elements.
Yeah, no light, no beings, no tunnel, no peace. Just terror, defiance, and this radical shift in understanding reality.
And the clarity of the memory is striking, too. She apparently remembers every single second of that event with perfect recall, much better than other things from around that time in 2004, which speaks to the intensity, the trauma, but also the significance it held for her.
Absolutely. The intensity is baked into the memory itself. And if we zoom out her story, while extreme, it kind of forces us to confront that intersection between consciousness, crisis, and maybe even reality itself.
So what's the final thought we leave our listeners with on this one?
Well, if we take her experience at face value, even just as her subjective reality, if that level of certainty about death combined with a powerful conscious refusal could feel like it fractured reality, like it shifted her existence into a parallel track, it really makes you wonder, doesn't it? It poses this question for you listening now: how much does our own focused intention, our own will, influence our path? If one desperate no could seemingly change everything in an instant for her, how much choice, how much power do we actually exercise over our perceived fate moment to moment? What really happens when you say no?
Thank you for listening to Borrowed Time NDE Podcasts. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, subscribe, and turn on the notification bell so you'll never miss a moment of inspiration. Until next time, wishing you an extraordinary and truly wonderful time on your journey through life.